Welcome back to the First42K podcast. Today I'm thrilled to have Jordan Chenery with me. Jord, how are we?
I'm good, thanks, brother. How are you?
I'm going really well. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure of mine to meet you firstly in July and then become friends with you over the last few months and learn so much about you. You're an incredible person, which we will get to all the things that you do. But I often describe you to others as the ultimate professional when it comes to not just your training, but also just how you operate on a day-to-day basis. So there is a lot to unpack with you and your story, but I want to start with, tell me about Jord when you were a young fella. Where did you grow up? And how has this journey sort of evolved?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. Probably something I haven't been asked for a while. So I did grow up in Geelong, played all my cricket and football down there. Obviously went to school in Geelong. So was naturally, around these types of environments, which, to be honest, has really set me up for today. That constant, athletics, and if I look at my schedule now, it would probably give me anxiety because it was constantly like every night there was either some kind of football or cricket or athletics, and every morning was either swimming or so it was having. I look at a lot of those disciplines and things has really set me up for today around the whole discipline thing and doing the hard things, and the fact that at the time it was so enjoyable, and it still is so enjoyable today. I just made it a part of my daily life. As you know, it's all about that movement. So I got hammered into me pretty early.
And did you have a favourite out of cricket, athletics?
Cricket was probably my sport. Yeah, I did. Got to play with some current Australian players over the years, and I was able to obviously represent different clubs and teams and stuff, and playing games at like Geelong Grammar and like this kind of stuff was pretty awesome to do when you didn't really get to go to a school like that.
Oh, that's
it's like walking
epic.
into somewhere like a Harry Potter movie.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't have picked you as a cricket man. Are you still a cricket man today?
Yeah, I do like watching it. Yeah. Not as much as what I did growing up, but definitely was left-hand opening batter and didn't mind throwing the right arm over as well. So it was very ambidextrous.
So a bit of an all-rounder.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, awesome, mate. And we obviously, one of the things that we've bonded very closely on is running. We share a massive passion for running, and I think, so many people when it comes to running, they think it's all about just running. And that's, one of the big focuses of why I wanted to create the First42K podcast is to educate people and bring people like yourself in who are not just doing these inspiring feats, but doing it in a way where, they're first and foremost looking after themselves and then really sending that message to others that, hey, you can run 5,000-6,000 kilometers a year and be okay. So I want to dive into some of your protocols of how you sort of conduct yourself on a day-to-day when it comes to training. Is it just running for you?
No, it's not. And the reason for that is, I build a lot of strength training around, that longevity. I have a lot of, with the future in mind, but also not to forget about what's happening today. So I have a real mentality of, what I do today is really going to matter in the future. And, I don't really believe in age. Yeah. So having that ability to do that strength training I've found has been the real fountain of youth. It's given me the ability to probably move through a couple of things where I've seen others who haven't strength trained, where they've gone through some kind of injuries and things like this. So I do build my weeks around my strength training actually instead of my running.
I love that.
My running is something that I do enjoy, but if I had to choose one or the other, which I don't have to, luckily, but I would do my strength training first and then I would do my running second.
And would you say that's because you prefer strength training, or would you say that's because without it you don't feel like you're running strong?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, in a perfect world, which I try and create that perfect world, it's never perfect, but I'm able to do both.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I know a lot of runners that don't do any strength training that are either injured or they're very low testosterone producing. So therefore they're very reactive. They find themselves in environments that are stressful where they might be a little bit more agitated and things like this. So I've been quite wary of that, especially because we do a lot of distance stuff as well. And, you know, if you're running 12 to 15 to 20 hours a week, it's a lot of time out there. So I'd much prefer to be stronger and be able to deal with my day-to-day life stresses in a way that's a bit more calming than opposed to being reactive.
Yeah, I love that. So you feel like the strength training carries over so much more than just running?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think everyone should have the cornerstone of their, you know, their life training plan, if you will, is to include strength training all year round.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I was sort of getting into running, initially it was all about events for me. I probably couldn't find the drive, the motivation to be getting up and training hard if I didn't have an event in front of me. Whereas now I feel like it's become my lifestyle, which is awesome. And you train for life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference when you can start to share with people, well, no, I'm doing this because yes, I love it, but I have to put it all together in order to be this sort of, the best runner that I can be, the best athlete that I can be. And I've been pretty vocal since my Run for Wishes recently in saying that I dropped a lot of weight, and it wasn't until I put some real weight back on that I felt capable of increasing that running mileage again.
Yeah, I remember you going through that, and we obviously had a conversation around that as well. It was quite interesting watching your journey from, you know, when you finished to like where you are now, and just seeing that not only the ability for you to have that mood. You just feel like you seem like you're a different person.
I was a bit flat back then, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I think I can see that now, and yet I couldn't really see that at the time. It's like sometimes you don't realize how much you need a rest on the other side of these feats, which is probably a nice segue. You've just recently done UTA 100K. How was that?
Yeah, it was good. Had a good day.
Yeah.
It was a good adventure. I had a beautiful, 24-degree day when 6 weeks ago when we were training down there, it was snowing. So, for the New South Wales people and probably the Vic people too that were it would have been very hot for them. And obviously being here in Queensland, we're kind of used to training in it. So I did the whole day in a long sleeve thermal.
Wow.
And it was fine.
That's awesome. Yeah, getting that real advantage.
Yeah.
Jeez. Oh, yeah, I think that would be huge over 100Ks. Nice, mate. And so how's your recovery been on the other side?
Yeah, I had 2 weeks completely off. It was a big race for me where I kind of did a 22-week prep. So I spent half the year kind of preparing for it and getting ready. So one of the things that I'm big on is also giving my body the ability to actually recover. I'm quite okay with not running for a few days. So I deliberately took 2 weeks off and including the gym, and just, I can feel my hips and stuff again now, like for the first time in probably a few months.
Yeah.
The recovery's been pretty solid. Mentally feeling a hell of a lot fresher now than what I was even going into the race.
Yeah.
It was quite a big build up. So it's nice just to have that clarity again and do some really unstructured runs for a couple of weeks and join a few more of the run clubs and just, be part of that kind of environment.
Yeah, how important do you think that is? Like I found after my run, you think about all the training and preparation, it's so structured. And then on the other side of it, all I wanted to do was just movement with mates. How important is unstructured training from time to time?
Yeah, I think it's good. It gives you a good way to reset. It also gives you a chance to really focus on the next upcoming block, which I think is important as well. Not that you need to build from kind of race or event to event. I don't think you need to do that, but however, in the where I'm at kind of now, where I'm building towards a few bigger challenges, it does just make things and put things in perspective with regards to my enjoyment around those kind of training sessions that I know, if I've got 6-hour run or 7-hour run scheduled, let's make an adventure about it, and let's get ready for it, and that kind of build up I think is good. After you've come out of a rest, we start to really look forward to, getting back into it. And then, obviously you show up once, but then you got to show up again for the session. So it's like
Yeah.
you know what you're in for, but you're also rested enough to be like, all right, I'm ready to go again.
Yeah, that's so key, because I think sometimes, especially when people see, you know, some of the running that you do, and I want to dive into 33 marathons in 33 days, which I did earlier this year, which is absolutely amazing. I think often when people see, you know, you going out there achieving these feats, it almost feels like, and I'm interested to hear from you if this has been your experience as well, it becomes such a big part of your identity, where you almost feel like people are saying, what's next, what's next, what's next? And you have to go and do something. And it's only taken me a few years to be like, no, it's okay to step back, and I don't have to have an event in my sights right now. So did you feel that after your events, and do you still feel that?
Yeah, not really. I think it's important that you put up some kind of boundary around not having to do a race to really prove yourself.
Yeah.
As we've spoken about, you know, time to time, I think more people need to fall in love with the actual ability to move and be able to run. You know, it's more of a privilege, if anything. Yeah. And I think sometimes that does get lost especially in a social media format where people are looking for that validation. So I think it's really important that, you know, are you doing it for yourself?
Yeah.
Or are you doing it for others? And I think if people can just look a little bit more inward and realize that, you know, you're in a very privileged position to be able to run, because there is a lot of people that can't.
Yeah.
Or don't, or they don't have that mindset. So I think, you know, coming back to your point around, you know, building from event to event, I think it's good if you're training towards something and you've got a few goals you want to tick off. I think it's all important. But however, like most of us are like recreational runners.
Yes, yeah.
You know, so I think if you can fall in love with those day-to-day type things and get around the run clubs and be part of that, I think you'll find it a hell of a lot more enjoyable, and you'll actually enjoy your running. And it's okay if you take a couple of weeks off, give yourself a reset and then go again.
Yeah, well, you'll be a better runner, right? Because you're enjoying the journey. The process is there. And I remember one of my good friends talking to her recently, Samantha Gash. She's just transversed Nepal with her friend Jessie for World Vision and Movember, a big fundraising campaign over there. And I sort of was talking to her. She's done a number of feats for charity. And I said, you know, why are you going across Nepal? And she said, because I want to. And I love that. I think that's, you know, as simple as it can be. You know, she's passionate about using her running to make a difference, but it's that real mix of she's doing it because she genuinely loves it, you know. And as you touched on, I think sometimes it can look like it is just for that social validation, external validation, which is not great. But I think if you are genuinely passionate about something and you love it, then go for it. It was funny. The other day I actually met Brian, who I know is a friend of yours at
nice.
P3.
Brian Upton, yeah.
Nice.
Mate, legend.
Special human. Keen to get him on the potty at some point. But to be 71 years old, he's telling me he's training for the Braveheart 7 marathons in 7 days at the moment, and just his mindset was next level. But Brian was really talking about that. You know, it's the whole journey, and that was something that I found pretty special for someone to be 71, moving as well as he is. It shows that if you focus on the process and the day to day, then it can really all come together for you. So one of the things I know that you're really passionate about as a runner is recovery. And I think that a lot of runners do a little bit in this space. Like I'd say myself, I'm pretty disciplined in trying to get 8 hours sleep every single night. But I know that there's more work I could be doing around mobility, around foam rolling, around ice baths, that sort of thing. You've sort of integrated this into your day-to-day life.
Yeah, it is a big chunk of, you know, how I'm able to function all year round. You know, I very rarely get injured, touch wood, but, you know, I do believe it is to some of these practices that I have included, and including those things is, you know, how much stress do you take on every day? And I know that's easy to say for some people and others. However, you know, most people could just start with some kind of breath work. Yeah. And just being able to breathe through that. We all go through stresses. So, you know, recovery starts with the breathwork stuff, which, you know, you're able to do, which I'm big on every day. And then obviously everyone knows that I love my cold plunges and saunas, which is something that I do expose myself to every day, because I just love the extremes of going through that. We were speaking about before around the comfort side of things. Yeah. You know, it's never easy getting a nice bath, even when you're used to it. So it's like, how do you get through that mental hurdle where you do some kind of breath work? You do it with others. Again, like I could easily just sit in the hot pool.
Yes, yeah.
But, I put myself into that
Which
cold
I'm sure people do, right? At P3, just go and sit in the hot
and
pool.
it's easy because it's easy to do.
Yes, yeah.
And so, again, I think of, the dialogue that goes through my head of being like, I'm here now.
Yeah.
Why would I just, cheat myself and not jump in the cold pool, even if it is for a day where I don't feel like it?
Yeah.
Just do a round of 4 minutes. It's just being that cold type thing. So I think it does, transition into other areas of your life when you're able to do it. But yeah, I'm definitely put recovery as a part of my day. I'm able to work, obviously, pretty remote most of the time. So I do use the time where I spend in compression garments to do work.
Yeah.
So I'm not just sitting there having a nap. Some days I do.
Yeah, of course.
But it's just having that ability where I know it's a part of my day. I know it makes me feel good. And to be honest, I know it gives me that longevity of like being able to do the things that I enjoy for a long period of time, as opposed to just really acute, short mindset stuff of just training for a race and then, stopping.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Well said. And I think, one of the things that people often talk about when it comes to running is nutrition. And you're really big in nutrition. Obviously not a nutritionist, so I don't want to go too far down that path, but just talk to me about sort of the main foods that you do eat on a day-to-day basis so that we can offer that support and help to others.
Yeah, I think, again, like when you look at, say, if you were to put yourself in a category of being an athlete, and I think a lot of people could actually benefit from thinking and training like an athlete, because, they're paid to do so many different things, but they're not just paid to perform. To perform, you have to recover well, you have to sleep well, and, as we're talking about now, you have to obviously eat well too. So, I base my whole nutrition around a whole food-based diet. Obviously, people know that, when they see my Instagram stories, it's, heaps and heaps of fruits and veggies. So I do all of my fruits till noon, and then I do all my veggies in the afternoon. That's how I structure my day. And it's nice being able to connect with people over food. Like with one of the podcasts that I have been on, people kind of ask me of ways that we could improve interaction. I personally believe it's actually over food.
Yeah. I
think it's a great way for people to connect and have those conversations that we don't really have anymore because everyone's, busy or, they've got stuff on or they watch TV while they're eating or, So I think basing everything around whole foods for me has been a really good. It definitely helps me sleep better.
Yeah.
Even in my big races, I stick to just bananas and dates and sweet potatoes and that kind of stuff. So I do put a huge emphasis on it because I know how good it makes me feel. And again, I'd rather feel good throughout the whole day and not just training.
Yeah.
So that is something that I do take pride in, knowing that if I am going to think of going to eat something shitty, I know it's going to affect me for either the rest of the day or, to be honest, sometimes it affects me that night.
Yeah, for sure.
But that doesn't mean that I don't go out for dinner and stuff with people if I know that it's going to affect my sleep. I don't feel guilty about it. I just choose not to do it all the time. Yeah,
I like it. It sounds like to me, to put it in simple terms, so how you go about things with training, with your whole food diet, it's just coming back to basics. It's getting that really good quality sleep. I know you're big on not waking up with an alarm.
Huge. Yeah, I haven't set an alarm for a very long time.
And still up before sunrise.
Yeah, I naturally wake up around anywhere between 3:30 and 4, and I'm up, ready to go. Again, I think a good night's sleep happens for what you do the night before. Before you go to sleep. Yeah. So I think I'm big on that routine around not having any screens at least an hour before I do go to sleep. Obviously, I read every night before I go to sleep as well. So I think these kind of practices work really well, and when you're able to track stuff through wearables and things like that, it gives you that data to really validate that it's working.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what I love about how you conduct yourself is the ability to set boundaries as well. So, you are getting up at 3:30, 4 o'clock because you're going to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and that you found that that's what works for you really well. So I think that that's something that I really admire about you, is because, you I don't like using the word busy because we know busy is a mindset, but you are doing a lot of things, from a training perspective, business perspective, all things like that. And yet you still have always got the time for others, which I really love. And, you've connected me with so many people here on the Goldie. You've made my experience in moving up here since July a whole lot smoother, to be around some inspiring people. So I do thank you for that. But
appreciate it. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that is, one of your greatest strengths, to be able to connect people through passion. And, there's been so many days where we've just been out in the trails and you don't know you honestly forget what day it is and what time it is. You're just in deep chats, which is awesome. So, mate, what is it that you love most about running?
That's a good question. I think the ability to, I could probably answer this a few ways. I definitely think the mental aspect is good. I do thoroughly enjoy those harder sessions where it makes you a little nervous the night before if you're looking at it. Yeah. Especially we use Training Peaks. So sometimes I look at the sessions and think, fuck, I really need to be on today to try and get through that. Yeah. I don't mind that. I think that's really good to test yourself. It makes you a little bit nervous or a bit scared. Am I going to hit the numbers that I need to? When you start looking at some of these ultra endurance races where you're doing like a 7-hour session, most people that would just freak them out, thinking I don't even have 7 hours to of life in a day, let alone go for a run. So I think, having access to those kind of mental challenges is really good. I think, we live in such a beautiful location, so it's a really good way to actually, I've been lucky enough to travel around the world, but just here on the Goldie, it's a really nice way to be able to, see places and see different areas. And to be honest, it's been one of the ways where I have traveled around the world, where I have seen different cities and different locations. It's like you don't see the stuff that you would see if you're driving in a car when you're running.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things, because you have traveled so much, just off the top of my head, the question is, when you go to foreign countries, they have walking tours everywhere. Have you heard of running tours? And do you ever join them?
No, I've seen a few though. I have actually seen a few, those little red flags that they hold up.
I did a running tour in Slovenia, and I don't think I've ever shared this story, but it was funny. I looked at it and I can't remember exactly. It was €20 or something like that. And it was €20, whether it was 5K, 10K or 15.
Brilliant.
I'm pushing this guy to 15. Let's get some of my money's worth. So it was pretty cool. He just ran me round. We'd stop. He'd point at this big castle and explain what it is, and then on to the next one. So
nice.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool experience. I reckon next time you travel around the world, have a look at a running tour.
Cool.
But, mate, do you have a favourite type of running session?
I definitely prefer the hills.
Yeah.
I'm obviously I love the trails.
Yeah. So trail over road.
Yeah, I'd much prefer the trails. I like being in and amongst the elements and that natural kind of environment. That doesn't mean I don't like running on the road. It would just, if I had to pick, I'd much prefer to be out in the trails. Throw a waterfall in there and make it like a morning out of it. We know that with a lot of the trails, especially that that we've been involved in, there's always dudes out there.
Absolutely.
That we know and stuff. So I kind of thrive off that. I think it's been a big part of just keeping myself a little bit more, quote, grounded. Yeah. Not just having that nature connection, but also the trail running community is it's nothing else. They're all got all their own things, but people come together and it's a very fun and friendly environment out there. As you see some of those goat loop specialists, they're just good blokes and good girls, and they're actually really wholesome people, which I thrive off.
Yeah, next level. And do you think a big part of that as well is because when we do another session that's a hard session, like an interval session or a tempo, you're looking at your watch a lot more, whereas when you're out there just in the trails, you can just be.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's good. I mean, I have no problems with kind of looking at my watch. I really set, we talked about boundaries before. I really set my watch face to really ignore that kind of stuff in especially the runs where you've just got, 90 minutes or 2 hours at, say, zone 2.
Yeah.
I try not to look at my watch, but again, like your watch is a nice tool for when you do those intervals.
Yeah.
Because again, it keeps you honest, like
Yeah.
having that coach just on your wrist.
Sure.
So I think like just being aware of that, it's like any kind of tech stuff. If you're just aware of what it does and you can catch yourself either, looking at your watch too much, which I see a lot of people do.
I'm guilty of that in the past.
Yeah, you don't, but it's just a learning practice as well.
Yeah.
And so I think like, just using the tools to their advantage is a good one. But yeah, with the trail stuff, like you just your heart rate goes up and down with the mountains.
Yeah.
And I love that because I think it's a really good way just to train based on feel.
Yeah, for sure. Honey Eater Trail in Airlie Beach. Is that your favourite, or is there a better trail in Australia?
Yeah, there's a few better. I think the Honey Eater's it's pretty brutal for someone. I've sent a few people up there and I got some really nasty texts afterwards because, as you know, like when you went and did it, the first basically 5Ks is just straight uphill.
Yeah, it was a bit better running down, I think.
Yeah, and so there is actually a really good race up there, the Great Whitsundays trail race. It's basically you start there and you run 25Ks out and come back. And it's a beautiful trail. But last time I was up there, I got to about 17Ks in and someone like put a missile through it. There was no way I was getting through like half the the forest. It was like I would have needed like a chainsaw and a truck, I think, just to get through. So I wouldn't say it's a beautiful trail. I think there's some really nice ones up around Cairns and Port Douglas. I have done a fair bit of trail running down in Vic as well, like obviously being from Melbourne. So there's all those like Warburton trails and all those kind of beautiful Grampians ones and stuff. And yeah, I've just been lucky enough to use my travel over the last few years around doing my training.
Yeah.
I've used it as an excuse to be like, I'll go to the Blue Mountains and not just do a race, but I'll also go and train there and kind of learn and spend a bit of time in the towns and kind of see what's going on there. And I think it's, for most people, if you don't like traveling overseas because whatever it is at the moment, it's just a good way to go and see some places and do, some small like staycations and stuff as well.
For sure. Well, it's a nice way to be incredibly disciplined as well, to add in the training side of things when you are traveling so much. One thing that we talked about is when you're traveling a lot, you could easily just get caught in comfort. You could go straight to the hotel. You're staying in a really nice hotel, and that could be the approach. But instead, it's like, nah, I'm going to make sure I get my training in as well. Yeah,
I think a big one on that is with hotels is they've always got an ice machine. So you just call them up and ask them for 100 bags of ice, and it's just a good way for them to be like, what the fuck? Which I have got a few times. But you see, like 8 or 9 service men and women rolling up with trolleys full of ice, and they must be thinking, what is this guy doing?
So ice bath no matter what.
Yeah, like that's a beautiful thing about a hotel. They've always got an ice machine in the bar downstairs, so you may as well get them to fill it up and bring it up and just throw it in the bath. I think it's just it's an easy way then rather than buying $150 worth of ice every day. Yeah,
definitely. And 33 marathons in 33 days. How big of a, play did ice baths, how important was that for you?
Yeah, actually, it's a really good question. Being in tune with what's going on in my body, which, like leading into everything, a lot of it doesn't change because it is a lot how I live my day-to-day anyway. So what I found with, as you know, when you do some kind of multi-day ultra-distance stuff, the immune system is completely shot. And I was very much aware of that. So I really upped my glutamine and I did a bunch of these extra things to really take care of myself. One of the big things that I did find was the cold was actually a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And it was, whether it was me or I was a little flat, I found it very difficult on those days where I was. So to combat that, I stayed away from the saunas because I just thought, I'm probably a bit dehydrated. I was lucky enough with the weather here that it was nice enough to, be, I wasn't too dehydrated. So, but I did stay away from the saunas. So I would just spend a little bit more time in the hot pool. Yeah. And then I would get myself into that cold, but I wouldn't do it for as long as what I normally did. And then when I got my blisters, it was excruciating putting my foot into a cold pool. So I was just aware of that. So I just did what I could. Yeah. And I didn't beat myself up over it. As much as I love the practice, I was also just aware of like what was going on.
Well, you had to make the adjustment at the time. It's interesting because I hadn't heard that, but for me, I think it makes a lot of sense. When your immune system is compromised, which it's going to be, running a marathon a day. I remember it was about a week to go of my Cairns to Melbourne run, and I had my mate Rin with me, and he's just such a passionate guy, and he's having cold showers only every day, that sort of thing. And he was giving me shit. He's like, you might be able to run an ultra every day, but you couldn't have a cold shower right now. So of course I'm showering right in front of him. I'm like, no, bring it on, cold shower, and I end up sick, right? Yeah. The next day. So sometimes it's tricky. You've just got to listen to your body. And whilst I think that day to day, that's a great practice, when you understand that other things are compromised, let's just dial it back a little bit there.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point to touch on. It's the extreme.
Yeah.
You don't do these things without, having a level of, baseline stuff. Like, you're kind of in tune with what's going on. Yeah. Same with what you've done. So I think, as you said, it's really important to touch on that because I'm well aware of like what goes on from day to day, but I'm also not in that extreme of running for 4 to 5 hours every day either. So I think it's really important that we do touch on that, because in the day-to-day practices, everyone can benefit from hot and cold. But when you put yourself through extremes, you just got to be aware of like what's going on.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Well said. And did you have a favourite day out of the 33?
Yeah, well, I got to finish on the Gold Coast Marathon, which was pretty good. Lots of family and friends. I wasn't expecting the finish to be like that, where you kind of get called up. But I did 5 marathons down in Melbourne, so I was able to catch up with some friends. I get up pretty early, so going back to Melbourne, trying to ask someone to start at 5 a.m. I was pretty much no runners out there anyway.
Yeah.
So I found a really smart way, I guess, to actually make some loops where they could come in. So I ended up just doing lots of loops of Albert Park Lake. And to be honest, that was pretty cool because, guys like Jack Rayner and Brett Robinson are basically warming up and they're flying past you while I'm dying, like just trying to get through another day of 42Ks. But
and did they know what you were doing at the time?
No, they didn't. And then but it was nice to be a part of, it's just the presence.
Yeah.
You watch them and you watch the running groups go past and but it was nice to be able to do some of those laps so that people could actually join in.
Yeah, I feel like, you're such a community-driven person. You want to involve other people and help make their day, which is one of the things I love about you. When you were doing the 33 marathons, 33 days, it would have added a greater challenge, though, having to fly around and be in different states.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it was brutal.
It takes a toll.
Yeah, I got to Sydney and I said to a friend of mine, like, let's do it up. He lives up in Avalon Beach, and so Northern Beaches. He's like, I'll do the marathon with you for that day. And, he was awesome. He's like, yep, come and stay at mine. I'll pick you up from the airport. So that all went smooth. And then what happened was I just didn't like the running through the Northern Beaches. It was like, I was up and down footpaths, and I know it sounds like stupid, but just getting up, and it wasn't very like runnable.
Yeah.
Whether it was the route that we chose or whatever, and I actually really enjoy running in the Northern Beaches. But I just said to him, I was like, I think I just need to get to Melbourne.
Yeah.
I just need like a flatter in that right there and then. So I literally looked at the flights that afternoon. I was like, all right, I think it was like mid-morning that we finished. We had some food. I was like, do you mind if you take me to the airport? I'm going to get a flight this afternoon to fly to Melbourne, because in my head I had to think of the next day.
Yeah, of course.
And have to be prepared. You know, I didn't want to do the marathon on an empty stomach, and, you know, so you try and prepare the best you can. So when you throw a flight in there, it's like,
yeah,
I've got to get to the airport. I've got to, like, you know, get to the location. Then I've got to get from the airport to where I'm staying.
It's crazy. And added stress, like not to dive into work, because I don't particularly like asking people what they do. I don't think it's the right question, but you were working at the time during your marathons.
Yeah, still doing my day-to-day work. And, you know, I didn't want things to consume too much of it around running. Like, you know, I enjoy my work, so it wasn't like, you know, I needed to run to kind of escape and stuff, but I also needed to be respectful that there are people that rely on you know, me to produce stuff, you know, every single day. And, you know, I would honor that and make sure that that was still part of it. In saying that, you know, I think a really important point is to be able to communicate that out to your teams and people that do rely on you, so that they're not giving you, you know, as much kind of, they can give you a bit of slack.
Yeah, of course.
Because what you're going through. And to be honest, there was a couple of times where, because I was open and transparent around what I was doing, you know, some of the team have actually taken care of some of my tasks for that week, which they didn't need to do.
Yeah.
So I think, like, one of the lessons there is just kind of be open and kind of share what you're doing. But also, like, you know, I still have a responsibility to do the things that I needed to do every day. And I wasn't just going to let that be taken over by just doing a marathon.
No, I love that, mate. I think I found that obviously during my run, you know, every Tuesday night we have our coaching call with First42K, and I was exhausted. You know, you're running 66 Ks average a day, and I was still making sure that I gave them that 45 minutes to be there. And I may not have been coaching at the greatest capacity, but it's more about showing up.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're someone who always shows up for the people around you. So that's awesome. Mate, you touched on hills, your favourite type of training session. Do you have a favorite distance to run in an event?
I seem to, you know, the older that I get, I seem to enjoy more of the ultra endurance. So anything above 100 Ks seems to be kind of where I enjoy it. Well, you know, there's not really many other races. I mean, there's some like 250 Ks and some 300 K races and some 500 K races.
Does any of that interest you, like a 200 mile?
Next year we're on. Yeah. So next year, obviously, I've got a goal to, you know, try and get into UTMB, which I've definitely worked my ass off over the last couple of years to get the qualifications to do that. But I'd really like to do, kind of like a Cocodona 250, which is a 250 mile race through the US. So I'd like to be able to do that. I know a few people that did that this year and absolutely loved it. I think there's like a 6,000 meter climb at the start. So
that's phenomenal. Love it and hate it and everything else in between.
Yeah, so I think just I think the ultra endurance and one of the reasons that I do share on that is I really like getting into those uncomfortable positions where I do have to, you know, think for myself and figure out what my nutrition and, you know, maybe go through those nights where I don't sleep, because as we know, it's such a big part of my day-to-day. So to put my body into that, it goes into overdrive. Yeah. And, you know, a couple of times a year, I think for me, that's just a really important part of growth, is to, you know, again, put myself into an extreme which teaches you how to deal with stuff. And, you know, I'm not saying you have to go and run an overnight race to do that.
Yeah.
However, in, you know, my day-to-days, I don't really have that kind of mental challenge. Not saying things are easy, and I'm being respectful around that, but I think these kind of races is where I like, because I like seeing the people that go through it with you. And I think that's really appealing for me as I start to, you know, go more and deeper into my journey of growth. So I'm looking at those bigger races over the next couple of years.
I love that. That's huge. I've always thought about a 200 miler. I haven't looked at any particular events, but yeah, it might be something we could do together one day.
Do the VVRT.
What's that one?
The Brisbane Valley Rail Trail. It's a 200 mile there.
Yeah, perfect. Done. Lock me in. Incredible, mate. Do you think that is the biggest driver for you? Like one of the things that you touched on earlier is that, you do this because it's a privilege to be able to run. So many people don't have the opportunity that we have here in Australia, and also through your dedication, discipline you've created for yourself. Is that why it's such a big driver? Just because you have the ability to move, and you know that through doing so, you're going to push the limits, you're going to feel better in who you are as a person, the journey that comes with self-growth, but also the ability to inspire others.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. I think it's an important thing that, people need to focus on is trying to do some of those harder things that do make you a little bit more uncomfortable. And I'm not saying that, these kind of things has been easy over the years, because I sure have had some years where I have been a little bit comfortable, and I haven't really experienced the growth that I've had by doing some of the harder things. And when I look back on those times, those were probably the times where I was a little bit more, if you would say, a bit more depressed and not as fulfilled.
Yeah.
And I think, like, when I look back at that, it's just literally a lack of growth. So I really put, my training as a part of a way to grow that. And as you said, like, that ability to move, is a big driver, because, you see a lot of stuff through social media where people, may not have, a position to be able to do that, or, like, there's circumstances that they're not able to do these kind of things. And that is, for me, is a big driver. And to be honest, that's probably one of the biggest things that I have around social media. I spoke with one of my business partners this morning around this of, social media gets such a bad rap. But for me, I follow so many inspirational and positive people. I actually enjoy scrolling through my social media feed, to draw inspiration for the days where maybe I don't feel like, and that does happen, like I don't feel like training or whatever. I look at a post and I'm like, they're getting after it today. So, like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like,
it's like, let's put the shoes on and go.
Yeah. So I think, like, in saying that, I see a lot of stuff around all the negative sides of social. However, I have to disagree with that, because I think it's such an inspirational tool. I know for myself, I think it's just who you do follow. And I think when you look at that, your environments and who you surround yourself with is going to make a huge difference to, the kind of outcomes and things that you do every day. So I want my social media feed to be full of, the things that I enjoy. And to be honest, it's worked really well, because there has been a few days where I'll be like, I can't be fucked today. But then, I might just jump on Instagram or whatever and have a look, or someone's done an inspiring tweet, and I'm like, sweet, I'm just going to get after. I'm just in my head.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just taking that first step, right? Yeah.
Yeah, just put your shoes on and go.
Because
it's like literally get out the front door.
Yeah, and then you feel better. Yeah. It's amazing. If you had to, there might be multiple things, but if there is one that comes to mind, what's one thing that running's taught you?
Definitely how to deal with my emotions.
Yeah.
I think this is a huge one, because we all get hit in the face with certain things, and like, the only people that don't have any stress are pretty much laying in the ground.
Yeah.
So I think having that ability to run and work through, spending time with yourself and how to deal with your thoughts. Like, as you know, you might have a 10K run or an hour run or whatever you've got, but if you don't have your emotions in check, it's going to be a long 10Ks.
Yeah,
or it's a long hour, because you're out there on your own, and even if you're in a group, you might find that session is a hell of a lot harder than what it normally is. So I think just learning how to control your emotions has been a big one, because that just goes then into your everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. And to go back to what we were talking about earlier with strength training, like, it's something that I've done a lot of in my time as a runner in the last 5 years in particular. But some of the different, I guess, training principles and disciplines and even just different exercises. Like, for yourself, I know you're big on a lot of the ATG stuff, in knees over toes. So you're doing sled work and that sort of thing. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, sled work for me has been just a brilliant way to really strengthen and condition my body, as I kind of progress through through the journey of life, I guess. But the sled for me, it's been really reassuring to see some of these guys like, Ben Patrick and these kind of crew that have come out with such amazing, studies and findings around this, because, I've been doing it for a long time. I've always included sled work for some.
Really?
Yeah. So I've always had, I kind of touched on this when I had a chat with Mick Sears from HGG, and, we talked about Louis Simmons and, that West Side barbell mentality. Yeah. And, that book is still on my coffee table today. That book has traveled with me around the world. That book has, taught me a hell of a lot of stuff, back when there wasn't a lot of social media. So going through and looking at those sled things, and then, seeing things like the backwards sled and the backwards walking, this is little practices that I've kind of naturally done without even having the social media.
It, mate, you're ahead of the game. That's awesome.
Yeah, but it just felt like, again, we come back to strength training. I'd rather have a stronger body, like just waking up every day where I'm like, I feel strong, as opposed to how I feel at the moment, which is like awful amount of pain because I haven't trained for 2 weeks. But I know that's part of it, but it's also like, being strong and being agile and being able to do the things that I want to do every day. And as we said, like, hills are my favorite session. One of the boys that we both know, Benny Grau, is always making fun of like how everything's like take the stairs. Yeah. And I know it's a good thing because, we obviously chat all the time around taking the stairs. Again, it's that uncomfortable thing. I carry my suitcases through the airport. I don't put the wheels down like mentality, because I think, it's just a short carry to a car where I'm going to be driving, or, a train or whatever like is next. So why not carry them? Like, just do some hard things in your day-to-day life. Take the stairs, walk up the hills, walk back, like just make it a part of your day, because the less that we move, we know like it causes way more problems than what most people think.
Absolutely. So, mate, you've had 2 weeks to freshen up. Do you know what's next?
I have Tarawera in February, so it's I'm looking forward to that.
So for anyone who doesn't know what Tarawera is, where is it?
It's in New Zealand. It's probably one of the more beautiful trail races in the world. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting over there and getting amongst that. It's in the first week of Feb, and then I'll take some time off and head to Europe and start to do some training and stuff over there, and be a part of that like UTMB journey.
That's awesome. And the Tarawera race, you've never done before?
First time.
100 miles.
Yeah.
100 miles.
100 miles, yeah.
You have run 100 miles though, plenty of times.
So it's just, I think one of the things is I wanted to put myself into that kind of category of, a lot of the guys on the Gold Coast that I've trained with have done that, and they've placed really well. And obviously being in the Blue Mountains, it's like an exceptional field. So, running with some of those guys and spending time with them, it was cool for them to, share about Tarawera. So it really validated my decision to go and do it.
Yeah, no, that sounds so inspiring. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. I know you're an incredibly driven man. You've got a lot to do for the rest of the day, no doubt. So we're actually about to go and hit P3 for some plunge pools. I know we touched on through this chat, Jord is all about the recovery, and I think he's teaching me to become better in that space, which is awesome. So a little bit of sauna, a little bit of hot cold, and some compression boots maybe as well. So, mate, one last thing before I let you go, where can people find you if they want to be in touch?
Yeah, I think I'm on all the platforms, Insta, Twitter and TikTok and stuff. I've also got my own website, which is just going through an upgrade at the moment. Yeah. So I'll have a whole bunch of new things on there, again, including a lot of these practices, which I've spent the last few months working on, kind of updating my content on that and keeping that fresh. Yeah, so, amazing. Yeah, if you just search my name, it'll come up.
Awesome. I'll put all that in the show notes. Mate, been an absolute pleasure to chat to you, and I'm looking forward to jumping into this pool.
It's been a pleasure, brother.
See you, brother. Thanks. Bye.